what they produce, the wine itself, but it's also important in terms of tourism. It's important in terms of the branding of our country in other parts of the world. And it's important as well because of the ideas and innovation that get generated as people battle with climate change, as they battle with markets, as they battle with ideas about how to do things differently and perhaps get that edge in a market that, on the one hand, globally is highly competitive, but alarmingly is also shrinking. With that in mind, very interested to once again consider the contents of yet another version of the South Africa Special Report. This is 2024-2026, and it is the 14th, produced by my guest, Master of Wine, Tim Atkin. Tim, welcome, and thanks very much for giving us your time on the show. Very nice to have you with us once again. I'm looking at a line in the report that you write that accompanies all the information you share about the wines you've tasted, and there were a good many of those. This sentence caught my eye. South African wines and grapes are too cheap for their own good. Tell us more about why you say that and what the implications of that are. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and lovely to be on the show. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's a problem really that it affects the whole value chain. That I think that the price that growers are getting for their grapes is too cheap. Most of the wines that are in the marketplace, both in South Africa and overseas, are too cheap for the industry to be sustainable, I would say, in its current form. And I think, as I said, this affects everybody in the value chain, from the people who pick the grapes right up to the people who import the wines. But the biggest impact it's having is on the vineyards and also on the profitability of wineries. So it's a kind of a paradox, really, that the greatest moment in its history, really, in terms of the quality of South African wine, that the price is still too cheap. It's very difficult to argue that as a consumer or a consumer journalist, even, because people say, "What's wrong with cheap wine? We love cheap wine,"
Yes.
and I think that's true. We all like a bargain, don't we? But I think the problem is that it's not really sustainable for the industry, and particularly for agriculture in this country.
Tim, I mentioned at the start, this is Special Report South Africa, or South Africa Special Report, rather, number 14. I mean, if you look, and we don't need to trace a full 14 years, but if you look at where South African wine was, where we started, and where we are now, I mean, how would you locate us in terms of a competitive but also shrinking global market?
Well, an incredible transformation. I mean, I first came in 1990. I didn't start writing a report immediately, but the biggest changes have been since 94. I mean, for obvious reasons, really. But what I like to think of as the new wave really began, to blossom in the 90s and 2000s. And I think that's been the biggest transformation in my time. In terms of the report, I mean, even in the space of, 14 vintages of my report, the transformation has been incredible in terms of the energy and the diversity of the wines that people are producing in this country. You're very lucky, I think, just to have so many great winemakers making wine at this point in your history. We've got to get the message out. And I think the end of my report, I write 10 very long things, reflections on the industry, which run to sort of 23,000 words. And I didn't expect you to read all of them in the time you've had available. But I think that I end by saying that we just have to get the word out. The quality of the wine, even in that 14 years, there's been an enormous transformation. And I also talk about the 2025 vintage. And I think that's probably the greatest vintage I've seen in my time writing about South African wine.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you about that a little later, but let's talk about it now. You say your words, 2025 stands out as historic. And you talk about this as a once in a generation 2025 crop. Well, what is the significance of that? I mean, obviously, it's a nice alert for people. Those wines, probably many of them will come on the market in 2, 3 years' time. So buyers, look out and see what you can buy. But in terms of establishing the South African reputation beyond our shores, does a great vintage help?
I think it's a game changer. I mean, there's a retailer in the UK, an important retailer called the Wine Society, and they recently did an en primeur offer. An en primeur means that you buy the wines as futures. In other words, they're before they're bottled. You're buying them on trust in a sense. And they sold £500,000 of Stellenbosch Cabernet and Cabernet blends that won't be available, as you said, until 2028. I mean, some of the 2025 whites are already on the marketplace, and particularly things like Chenin and Chardonnay, and some of the lighter reds like Pinot Noir and Cinsault maybe. But in terms of the heavy hitters from places like Stellenbosch in particular, those won't be available for 2 years. And I think that 2025 could be a bit of a game changer in terms of establishing South African fine wine in the marketplace. I mean, I think South Africa, for people in the know, I mean, like you and I, we know that South Africa is producing some really fantastic wines. But I think in terms of the broader market, it's not seen as being at the same level as something like Bordeaux or the Napa Valley. And I think 2025 could change that.
I want to ask you about a problem of a different kind because, on the one hand, there's this great vintage that is now preparing itself for launch and sharing with people eager to see what all the buzz is about. But we have a massive surplus of wine. The
Yeah.
2026 harvest is expected to be the biggest. We already have 470 million liters, according to your report, of surplus stock. And by the end of this year, that could be closer to 600. I mean, what does a country do with that?
Well, I mean, sell it, and the problem is that that will drive down the bulk price, and bulk price is a commodity. Well, bulk wine is a commodity that's traded around the world. And one of the things I argue in the report is that South Africa needs to promote its wine from the top rather than from the bottom, because if you're just selling bulk wine as a commodity wine, you're competing with Spain and and Chile and Argentina and Italy and France and all these people, a lot of whom are desperate to sell wine. So I think it's a real problem. And 2026, following on from 25, which was an amazing vintage, was a more mixed vintage, although I haven't tasted that many wines from it just yet. But as you said, the problem with 2026 is it was really big. It's the biggest vintage since 2015. So, I mean, I think South Africa as a country needs to work out ways. Again, it goes back to that, the image question. I mean,
Yes.
it's partly linked to price, but I think that there's going to be downward pressure on price because of the amount of wine in the marketplace, and people just desperate to empty tanks. So it's a real problem. And as you said, I don't really have a magic bullet solution really to get rid of it, but I think that how South Africa sells that wine is a big question.
Tim, people obviously interested in what you've learned, and by the way, the report contains some really interesting interview material with a huge range of players, which people will enjoy reading about. But I'm sure they're interested as well in the way you go about your work. You assessed 1,831 wines from more than 350 wineries. And you mentioned that most of them, you were actually on the estate or wherever the wine was produced, presumably chatting to the people who made it. At the moment at which you sit down and taste and reflect and mull over what has been produced, do you kind of do that with a degree of privacy where you kind of need absolute concentration to give it its full attention?
I'm actually surprisingly good as a man at multitasking. So I
Oh,
can have
okay.
one side of my brain, one side of my brain listening to
Yes.
somebody, and I think, I mean, you're an excellent journalist, and so I wouldn't put myself in your class, but I think I'm a reasonably good journalist. So I think as journalists we have a good bullshit filter, if I may use that
Yes.
word live on radio. I think we're good at filtering out the PR and the fluff and the marketing stuff from the essence of the wine. So I think I've got good over the years at just sort of zoning that out and creating a little bit of quiet inside my own head, even if
Right.
there's not quiet going on in the room.
Yeah, and tell me this. I mean, in the light, because you do give scores to different wines, and you've had a few 100-point scores before. People who follow wine won't be, I think, surprised to see the name Sadie family and the Columella alongside your this year's 100-point score. Describe a 100-point score wine for me, who's probably never necessarily tasted one and thought, I mean, is a 100-point wine perfect, or is that me drawing a conclusion that doesn't really that isn't necessarily there?
Well, I think perfection depends on, it's subjective in a sense, isn't it? For me, a 100-point wine, and in the history of doing this report, I've given 9, I think. So some people give 9 in a single vintage or in a single report. So I'm reasonably frugal about the whole process. But for me, they're wines that touch me emotionally, as well as being perfectly balanced. So the perfection, I think, comes from the balance in the wine, but also that emotional pull, and the emotional pull, is completely subjective. I agree with that. But I suppose it's just down to people who buy the wines, and I hope that this wine will be sufficiently available in the market. It's not cheap, I'm sorry about that. But that people will feel the same connection. But I think with wine critics, I mean, it's a bit like any other form of criticism. You need to
Yes.
find someone whose palate more or less agrees with your own. I mean, there are certain film critics I follow in England, or theatre critics, or book reviewers, and I just find that if they review a book or like a film, I'm probably going to like it too. And so I can't please everybody, but I think if people find they agree with my palate most of the time, then, come along for the ride. And if you don't, then there are other critics out there that you can follow too.
And just finally, and briefly, if you can sum up, Tim, in conclusion, I mean, on the one hand, huge opportunity, massive quality. You say that South Africa makes some of the greatest wines in the world. I'm just quoting directly from your press release for the report. And on the other hand, you're quite unsparing in talking about the many things that winemakers and everyone in the industry is up against. I mean, on balance, good years ahead, or is it touch and go?
Yeah, I think we're at a tipping point. I mean, South Africa is at least two very different industries. There's a kind of bottled, quality driven industry, and there is a bulk, sort of price driven industry. And obviously, that's true of many industries, wine industries in the world. But I think that South Africa is giving too much attention to the bottom end and not enough to the top end. And the tipping point for me means that South Africa has to find ways to promote the top end to pull the entire thing upwards, as it were.
Thank you so much. Tim Atkin, Master of Wine, talking there about what he's learned about South African wine in the course of compiling this document, South Africa 2026 Special Report. 702 Drive, coming up for the news at 4.
In the last 24 hours, this is what's happened in your world.
Dwayne Davis, a former Los Angeles gang member, has been found guilty of murdering rapper Tupac Shakur, which has remained unsolved for nearly 3 decades. The famous rapper was shot multiple times in a drive-by shooting in 1996 in Las Vegas and died several days later. 63-year-old Davis was accused of plotting the killing, and he's the only person who was charged in the murder in 2023.
The verdict reads as follows. We, the jury in the above entitled case, find the defendant Dwayne Keith Davis as follows. Count 1, murder with use of a deadly weapon. Guilty of first-degree murder with use of a deadly weapon, dated this 31st day of August 2026.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent.
Planning for retirement doesn't have to be overwhelming. Time is running out. Join PPS on 19th September for its annual Retirement Summit, where you can hear from financial experts and thought leaders on building, growing, and protecting your wealth. Whether you're under 45 or over 45, there's a program for your life stage. Enjoy a meal, connect with professionals, and leave with insights. At only 150 Rand per person, book now at pps.co.za/retirement summit. PPS, success is better shared. A clearer plan for your financial future. PPS is a licensed life insurer, controlling company, and authorized FSP.
At Crawford International, confidence is built every day. We're encouraged to find our voice, think independently, and lead with courage, integrity, and compassion. In the classroom, on the sports field, and beyond, we learn to step forward, embrace opportunity, and make a meaningful difference. Crawford International.
The Money Show.
Weekday evenings at 6.
Why is it that sugar is being imported at a lower price than the sugar we produce here?
It's an historic thing. Every country that produces sugar has a regulation in place, and the playing field isn't level. So some countries like Brazil have an ethanol regime as well as a sugar regime, and that allows them to earn money from ethanol and sugar, and they can switch between the two, as prices vary.
Dr. Thomas Funke is the CEO at SA Cane Growers.
The Money Show
On 702.
702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Curtis is brought to you by ABSA Corporate and Investment Banking.
Across West Africa, Genza Energy is strengthening reliable energy supply with more than 334 megawatts of installed generation capacity, while building the infrastructure needed for future growth. Through a EU 456 million rand financing facility, ABSA CIB is proud to support Genza's progress. That's how we're invested in your story. ABSA is a registered FSP.
This is EWN.
Impeachment Committee Chair not worried about delays, and Libya continues answering drug theft related questions. Good afternoon, I'm Bali Dlamini. The chairperson of Parliament's Impeachment Committee believes the ongoing legal challenges to the Section 89 inquiry are to be expected. Makashulekana says he does not view the President Cyril Ramaphosa's litigation against the work of the committee as dictating its timeframes. Ramaphosa's review of the parliamentary report that has given rise to the inquiry will be heard by the Western Cape High Court tomorrow. Ramaphosa is facing impeachment in connection with the theft of US dollars stolen from his farm in Palapala in 2020. Today, the committee resolved to rescind its decision for Advocate Thandazani Madonsela to be appointed as the evidence leader. Speaking after that meeting, Ghana emphasized the importance of fairness and due process.
If we do not adhere to the Constitution and the rules and the law carefully, we expose the process to further legal challenges. It is therefore better to deal with a matter properly when it arises than to rush a decision and create difficulties later. Legal challenges were, in any event, something I anticipated when I accepted this responsibility.
Retired former Hawks head Godfrey Libya has returned to the stand at the Madlanga Commission this afternoon to testify about the theft of more than 500 kilograms of cocaine from the Hawks Port Shepstone facility. The drugs were first uncovered in June of 2021 at a shipping depot in Durban before being moved to that Hawks office. The drugs were stolen during a break-in in November of 2021. In the aftermath, former KZN Hawks head Lesseja Senona requested Libya sign off on polygraph tests for all Hawks members in Port Shepstone and Durban, except for himself and another provincial commander. Libya told the commission he wasn't aware of all the information around the incident at the time.
I was not considering him as the person of interest. He was the one who was complaining, and those are the members under his command.
Okay, so at the time when he's complaining, that's why I took you through the chronology earlier, you don't know that he was the custodian of the keys to the safe that was breached?
That's correct, Commissioner.
Okay.
Members of Parliament's ad hoc committee probing allegations of police corruption continued to clash today over their failure to call suspended Crime Intelligence Deputy Head Feroz Khan to give evidence. They've also cautioned against their draft report, creating the impression that the committee deliberately avoided calling Khan, who stands accused of unduly influencing some IDAC investigations. The committee continued its deliberations into its draft report today, where members raised their concerns. Babalondenze has the details.
After failing to call in a deputy head of crime intelligence, Feroz Khan, the committee said it opted collectively not to call him as a witness during its initial evidence-gathering phase. Accusations also arose within the committee that it was EFF leader Julius Malema who used his influence to block Khan from appearing. But committee member Kusela Sangoni-Digo says with benefit of hindsight, Khan should have been called in.
I hope that our report is going to be very clear that hindsight is obviously 2020 vision, but we did not have the benefit of hindsight as we were working through this.
MK Party MP David Skosana says they're the only party that dissented to Khan not appearing, and he was only mentioned by the committee in passing.
General Khan matter was just mentioned, it was by the way, in passing. We are not going to be part of that.
The committee will continue finalizing its report over the next 2 days. Babalondense, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
The Delmas Magistrates Court has set new timelines for a defence bid to have the bail condition of Mpumalanga taxi boss Joe Ferrari Sibanyoni and his 3 co-accused relaxed. The 4 are facing charges over allegations that more than 2.2 million rand was extorted from a mining businessman. They are currently out on 70,000 rand bail each, with conditions including reporting to a police station. The defence wants that requirements eased, with both sides given until Friday to try and agree on new conditions. The prosecutor has said that the main matter can then proceed on the 20th of October.
On the 4th of September 2026, we will be receiving an application from the legal representatives of the accused person. State is offered an opportunity to reply to the application on the 5th day of October 2026. Therefore, the main matter we requested to be postponed to the 20th of October 2026 back in this court.
And in the UK, former Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced his decision to stand down as a Member of Parliament. That decision comes weeks after he resigned as Britain's Prime Minister, having lost the support of his Labour Party. Experts say his tenure was marked by several damaging U-turns, a failure to connect with voters and the support of the public and his party. Starmer says he will now turn his focus to international affairs. Gold is trading at $4,368.33 an ounce. The rand is at 16.13 to the dollar, 21.84 to the pound, 18.70 to the euro, and Brent crude oil is at $92.23 a barrel.
In Dinwiddie, Germiston, there's an accident scene on Black Reef Road. That's Wits Rifles approaching Castell Avenue. This is slowing down traffic this afternoon. Southgate, also there's an accident scene on the N12 westbound at the Uncle Charlie's interchange, causing some delays heading into Soweto. Benoni, there's also slow-moving traffic on Atlas Road approaching North Rand Road due to faulty traffic lights.
And in your sport, the Proteas hand Zimbabwe a 186-run target to chase down in their Tri-Series T20. Meanwhile, Pitso Mosimane has been given the Bafana reins as he was unveiled as their new head coach. And South Africa extends the transfer window until the 21st of September.
A fine Wednesday in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Johannesburg dropping to overnight lows of 11 degrees, peaking at 28. Pretoria 12 and 29, and Vereeniging 11 and 27 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour: the chairperson of Parliament's Impeachment Committee believes the ongoing legal challenges to the Section 89 inquiry are to be expected.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
7:02.
Drive home with John Perlman.
John Perlman, 3 to 6 p.m.
On 92.7 and 106 FM. Let's walk the talk.
7:02 Drive. It's 10 minutes past 4. First day of September, first day of spring, although I remember once saying before that the first day of September is the first day of spring, and somebody said, no, you got the seasons all wrong, that spring starts a little bit later. Anyway, whatever it is, whichever it is, a lot of people treat spring as a way of making a fresh start in some way. So I was asking you a little bit earlier, spring cleaning, do you have any plans to get rid of stuff? Now, spring cleaning can mean, your old school reports or, clothing that you've kind of hung on to, but it really is time to let go, or all those glass jars that you've kept thinking that someday you might make jam and then realize you're not. Or you did it once and realized you shouldn't do it again, whatever it is. But then there's also the emotional stuff, things that could use throwing away or putting to one side, or at the very least being put in boxes and sealed up with some really strong tape. Give us your thoughts, please. What are you getting out that's out of the system as you contemplate the start of spring, which is a nice part of the year, I have to say. Hay fever notwithstanding. So keep calling us with those. We've got a couple, and we'll play them for you already, and some nice stuff from all of you. Thank you for that. Coming up in the next hour or so, Songezo Zibi, who is the Rise of Mzansi leader, but also chairs Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts, has been asking some very interesting questions in Parliament about What I think he seems to be suggesting is the failure of the Department of Higher Education to actually track degrees, qualifications, and look at how those give people traction or not in the job market. I thought that was a very, very interesting conversation which he's been driving, and he's going to join us shortly to tell us, first of all, why he brought it up, but secondly and crucially, what he thinks needs to be done in the light of the answers he's been given. And then one of the things to really look forward to in September is the Joy of Jazz, which comes up in the latter part of the month. We'll give you all the details of what's on and where you can see it. But we're going to talk about what it's like to be a jazz musician at a jazz festival. What is it like to be there knowing that, you not only have to perform, but you have an opportunity to hear and listen to all sorts of people and listen to the music that they make and engage and talk about music. Looking forward to that conversation. We'll introduce our guests to you in 10 minutes or so. And then with the local government elections coming up, the organization My Vote Counts is calling for stronger and more detailed disclosure of the political funding that parties get. In the last quarter, 116.8 million rand was declared. When I read through that, I saw a lot of gaps that made me think, well, there's more money out there than has actually been declared. But later for that Joel Bregman, who's with My Vote Counts, joins us to give us their insights. That's coming up at about 10 to 5. It's 13 minutes past 4.
702. WhatsApp John
on 072
702
1702.
Hi, John. Johnny in Forest Town. I'm in favor of a sprinkling of ideas, attitudes, our opinions as a nation. I'm sure this Friday, again, we'll have one of those impressive plane flyovers, which are breathtaking, awesome, exhilarating. But couldn't we have a fresh look and say, all the money we would spend on the fuel, on the pilots, on the logistics, on the missions, and send it to somewhere that needs the money, like Sudan or like right now Nepal, but anywhere, or even some of the poverty projects in our own country. And rather than focusing on our own gratification and excitement, feel a little bit at that moment what others are going through.
Hi, good afternoon. I was listening to your guest talking about the wines, and particularly the South African wine being too cheap. Now, I think, if you look at a winemaker, what does he want to sell? 1,000 boxes at 200 rand a bottle? Or does he want to sell 3,000 rands at 100 rand, or 3,000 boxes at 100 rand a bottle? And I think it's a matter of economics. You can ask 500, 600, 700, 1,000 rand a bottle, but how many of that are you going to sell versus you charge a much more reasonable price for that bottle? And then all the other issues of overproduction and all that. So I just don't think that this pitch for more expensive wine makes much sense.
Yeah, thanks for that feedback. I mean, I do think what Tim Atkin was saying there was quite a bit more nuanced than that. And if you do want to listen back on the interview, you can pick it up on our website, primemediaplus.com. I think the point he was making was not that all wine should be sold for more, although that might be a consequence of what he was saying. But I think the key point he seemed to me to be making was that in your pricing in the wider world, particularly in markets in Europe, the United States, possibly Japan and Australia, I don't know, although they have their own wine industry, the price point does give some indication to the people that are buying the wine of the value you yourself set on the product. So I think that was the point being made, not that all wine should cost more and therefore more money will come to the wine farmer. I think it's about the way in which the South African wine industry says to the rest of the world, this is who we are, this is what we make, and this is how good we think it is. That's what I understood it to be. You don't have to agree with that point either, and I'm possibly simplifying it a little bit, but all I'm saying is the conversation isn't simply about numbers. 16 minutes past 4.
EWN Traffic.
Problems in Melrose. This EWN Traffic is brought to you by Outsurance. SMS out to 45142 now. You could save on car insurance. If you don't, ask them for 500 Rand. Karabo Charlie, what we got?
Yeah, heading towards Sandton, that's leaving the Melrose area. There's an accident scene on the M1 northbound near Corlett. This is causing huge delays all the way from Killarney, Benz. Dinwiddie, Germiston, accident scene as well. This is on Black Reef Road. You can also call it Wits Rifles. This is approaching Castell Avenue. And this is also slowing down traffic this afternoon. Benoni, we still have slow-moving traffic on Atlas Road, approaching North Rand Road due to faulty traffic lights. In Edenville, heading towards Germiston, Alberton, traffic heavily backed up. N3 South from Morafontein Road to Van Buren. In Southgate, heading into Soweto, there's an accident scene. N12 West. This is at the Uncle Charlie's interchange, slowing down traffic. Protea Glen, we still have bumper-to-bumper traffic on the R559 main road opposite GOG Gardens. And finally, in the capital, Hermanstad, expect some delays on Eskiam Pahlele. That's leaving the CBD between Wormhagen and the R80. For the latest traffic updates, you can also follow us on X at EWN Traffic.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
The Outsurance pointsmen can't stop your teenager from hitting snooze for the 5th time, but they can help get traffic flowing so the school run goes a little smoother. The Outsurance pointsmen are real heroes in green and purple, easing traffic congestion, making our lives easier. They've been doing it for the past 21 years. With Outsurance, you really always get something out. In proud partnership with 702. Show them some love online using hashtag pointsmenlove. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP.
You're with John Perlman on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
Well, I must admit, a story really caught my eye. Siyabonga Goni, writing on the Daily Maverick site under the headline, DHET, Department of Higher Education and Training, admits it cannot track which degrees lead to graduate unemployment. Now, this is a conversation that has been kind of front and center in some forums in Parliament. The opening sentence raises a rather important point, or two of them. Let me share those with you before I introduce my guest. The Department of Higher Education is spending billions in public funds without tracking which university degrees lead straight to the unemployment line. While this happens, the unemployment rate among graduates has grown from 10.3% to 12.4% in 7 months. Now, the lack of a tracking system, this flowed out of parliamentary questions asked by Rise Mzansi, leader and Scopa Standing Committee on Public Accounts, Chairperson Songezo Zibi, and he was engaging with the Higher Education and Training Minister Buti Manamela. Songezo Zibi joins us now on 702 Drive. Mr. Zibi, welcome and thanks for your time. You clearly thought this was a very important issue to raise. What was on your mind? But crucially as well, what do you hope will come out of this line of questioning and this conversation? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, John, and thank you very much for having me. You know, one of my pet peeves in South Africa, and I speak about this in Parliament all the time, is the fact that we appear to be making policy in the dark. And I have advocated numerous times for Statistics South Africa to be given sufficient resources to conduct various pieces of research, be that social or in other areas, so that we can adequately inform policy. So what gave rise to this question is that we started looking for this information and we could not find it. And it seemed odd that we would not have that information because we are firstly making kids spend 4 to 5 years studying something that is not going to give them employment, such as the qualification in public administration. There is a degree and a national diploma in public administration, and the majority of those kids do not get jobs because they can only get jobs in the government, and those are full. And the government has started retrenching people, reducing the staff numbers, but we continue to churn out graduates in that area. I felt it's important that we do this, and this is my hope to your second question, that when we do these studies, it begins to inform basic education policy, the curriculum offering, the training offered to teachers, all the way through to what programs are offered post-matric so that those people can service the current and future economic needs.
You know, what strikes me, and again in Siyabonga's piece, I mean, there is an indication, for example, that the Human Sciences Research Council is doing something called the National Graduate Destination Study. It sounds like it's at an early stage. And there is a constant, I don't want to call it a babble of conversation because that suggests that people don't know what they're talking about. I don't mean that at all. But it does suggest there's no coherence to a conversation in which all sorts of role players are saying we need to develop and train people with skills that will enable them to contribute to the economy of the future. We've got lots of little things going on, but nothing coherent. Would that be a fair assessment? And if so, how would we change that?
It's an accurate assessment, and really it needs a different philosophy from Cabinet, John, about data and how we collect data, the quality of that data, and how we deploy it in the development of policy, not just as an outcome of politics and politicking, but actually as an outcome of a scientific process that determines the needs of the society and the needs of the economy. We don't do that at all. So your assessment is correct. Even the way that we collect employment statistics here is not as accurate as you would get, for instance, in the United States, where they look at the equivalent of the UIF claims. The more people that they count the number of additional people who register with UIF because it means they're now earning a salary, and they count the number of people who are doing what? Who are making a UIF claim because it means they've lost their job. As a consequence, they're able to do this calculation every single month. In South Africa, it's 90 days after the end of the quarter that we are reporting on. So even there we are late and we are not able to respond. So there's an unhelpful, I would say, unhelpful attitude towards data collection to inform policy.
Thank you so much. So much more to talk about, and we'll keep pursuing this. I'm going to ask all of you some questions, but our thanks to Songezo Zibi, leader of Rise Mzansi, chairs Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts. And just to go back very briefly to the first point he made, he said, we are not making policy driven by sufficient data, and his focus is now on higher education and training, where he says we are not, and government concedes, not tracking, perhaps over a 5-year timeline, what kinds of qualifications lead to employment, which doesn't mean that we now have a regime where we say to somebody, no, you can't study history or fine art or music, but nevertheless, you need to give people a much clearer idea of where what they're studying might lead and build a basic education and high school education around those future and present needs for the economy. Interesting stuff. We'll talk about it some more a little bit later. 24 minutes past 4.
Drive home with John Perlman
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
Right, now it's time to talk about music, because one of the really nice things about September, other than the expectations of longer days and warmer weather, is the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz Festival, the 2026 edition, the 27th of one of Africa's premier live music experiences, coming to the Sandton International Convention Centre. That's in Joburg, of course, and that takes place on the 25th and the 26th of September. Well, one of the people who will be performing is Buhle Bendalo Mda, who joins me now in the studio. She's going to be with other artists producing or presenting a tribute to Busi Mhlongo. Welcome to 702 Drive. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me, Uncle John.
Before we talk about music, and particularly your music, I want to know what it's like being a music artist at a jazz festival, because presumably you're thinking to yourself, I've got to get ready, I've got to get in a zone, but there's 30 artists I want to see, and realistically I can probably see 5, but it must be a fabulous creative hot pot. I hope it is.
Yeah, especially for the caliber that Johannesburg Joy of Jazz is. I think it's my second time, if not third, performing at the Joy of Jazz. But for this one, it feels like a great affirmation, because we're paying tribute to one of our greatest legends in the country, and alongside beautiful, talented queens Uzawadi and Xolisa Dlamini. And we've been called by Akum Agency to pay tribute to Busi Mhlongo, which is big.
Yes.
Which is very big.
Pressure.
Yes, the pressure is as the kids would say, the pressure is getting worse.
but presumably pressure on the one hand, but creative juices flowing on the other.
Oh, yes. I mean, Busi Mhlongo has a huge repertoire, and every song has a beautiful message in it. And it was hard to even pick which songs we will be doing with the ladies. But we are gearing up, and the rehearsals are amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just play some music and then fade it into the background. This is from your album, Chosi, if I've said... Kosi.
Yes.
Okay. Kosi. Apologies for the mispronunciation, but let's hear it. Nyamazane.
Yes.
So with the music in the background for us, I want to ask you this. I mean, have you come away from previous jazz festivals with ideas, with new music in your head? Not necessarily that you want to imitate it all, but just threads that are suddenly being pulled through your musical mind?
Yes, you know, outside of being a musician myself, I also go as a music lover.
Yes.
So the mind and the heart is so open, because there's also international acts that are deemed to be very far from us, and when they are brought closer, you feel that the inspiration is getting higher as well. So every time at every festival, you always come with that sense of creation that you want to go to studio and create.
And just finally, let's take off the musician's hat for a second, even while we enjoy your music. And as a jazz lover, how on earth from that program are you going to choose what to go and listen to? Because you're also working.
It's so jam-packed.
Yes.
It's so jam-packed. Good thing is that there's 2 days to watch.
Yes.
So I'm working on only one day. So maybe the next day I will just go as a consumer of music.
Well, listen, we're really looking forward to what you're going to share with us at the Joy of Jazz. It's going to be on the Imbira stage, I think.
Yes.
And the program is out. People have a look at it. There's fabulous stuff. It is the 2026 Standard Bank Joy of Jazz Festival. 25, 26 September. Put it in your diary. Book your tickets. We are all looking forward to it. Buhle Bendalo Mda, thank you so much for joining us on 702 Drive.
Thank you.
EWN Business.
Busy day on the markets today. Let's find out what's been happening. And welcome, Stephen Critters. Good afternoon.
John, good afternoon. The market's not quite dancing to the right music this afternoon, I'm afraid, because Brent crude is slightly higher by around $2 from where we were yesterday. And that, along with one or two other factors, pushing the JSE down 0.22%, 115,999 points. Financials down 1/3%. Industrials down 0.22%. Resources down 0.07% on the day so far. Canal Plus down over 9%. Canal Plus is up. 9%. Northam's up 6.29%. MTN up 4%. Clicks is up nearly 4%. We Buy Cars is up 3%. Even the platinum mine of Altera is up. And one or two of the big retailers are up nicely. Pick n Pay's up 2%. Interesting because ShopRite had their results out today. They're going to buy the Vita coffee chain, by the way, John. They say they'll be able to take advantage of growth in the coffee market. They diluted headline earnings per share for the end of June, up over 12%. Like-for-like sales in their SA supermarkets division up 2%. 60/60 sales up nearly 35%, which I thought was a very interesting figure. Tungela down 7.5%. Pan-African Resources down nearly 5%. Bidvest down 3.6% after their results yesterday, and Truworth's down 3%. Discovery also down 2.5% on the day. Sasol able to bring their headline earnings up by 9% in the year to the end of June. Their EBITDA was up 17% to 61 billion rand, John. They're using a lot of that to pay back debt. They're obviously higher oil prices a major factor, but production at Secunda up by 8% as well. And Sea Harvest saying firm global demand for sustainable sustainable seafood has pushed their headline earnings per share up by 14%. In the US, there's been a big sell-off in global bond markets. So Japan's 10-year bond yield hit 3% for the first time in about 30 years. Also in the US, Germany, Britain, all of this having a bit of an impact on those yields. As a result, that, along with one or two other factors, pushing the U.S. markets down. The Dow Jones down 0.42%, the Nasdaq down 1.15%, the S&P 500 down 0.2%. The gold price $4,354.40 an ounce, platinum $1,771.10, Brent crude $92.45, and the rand to the dollar 16.09, to the euro 18.66, to the British pound 21.79. Stephen Curtis, EWN Business.
Thanks, Stephen. 28 minutes to 5. The latest Eyewitness News now with Mbali Dlamini. Good afternoon.
Thanks, John. Good afternoon. A legal showdown is looming between the ANC and the SACP in the Western Cape over the removal of Communist Party representatives from the legislature as well as municipalities. The ANC has expelled Benson Nqensu after the SACP decided to contest the upcoming local government elections separate from the ANC. Nqensu has represented the ANC in the legislature since 2024 as part of the tripartite alliance. The SACP has now approached the courts to stop the ANC from removing its representatives, Ntutuzelo Nene reports.
The SACP says the ANC cannot unilaterally remove alliance partners from positions they were deployed to serve in. Provincial chairperson Anthony Dedrech accuses the ANC of moving from leading the alliance to dictating to its partners. He says this has resulted in what he described as arrogant and gangster-like treatment of Communist Party leaders.
The SACP's directive to all deployed cadres in the provincial legislature and municipalities across the Western Cape is to remain in their position and ignore the ANC's dismissal letters.
The SACP says it remains committed to contesting the upcoming local government elections independently. Ntutuzelo Nene, Eyewitness News.
A co-accused in the trial of alleged underworld gang boss Nafees Modak has testified that slain top cop Charles Kinnear and the late Major General Andre Lincoln gave the go-ahead for a grenade attack in a plot to kill Modak. The accused, along with Modak and 13 others, face a slew of charges, most of which center around Kinnear's murder in September of 2020. Accused number 10, Yannick Adonis, has been cross-examined about evidence related to 3 botched attacks on Kinnear before his eventual murder. Carlo Peterson reports.
Yannick Adonis told the court the anti-gang unit roped him in to orchestrate a grenade attack on slain top cop Charles Kinnear's home in November 2019 and to blame it on Nafees Modak. Adonis faces charges of conspiracy to commit murder related to his alleged involvement in 3 botched attacks on Kinnear, who was head of the AGU at the time. While being led by his lawyer, advocate Pieter Null, Adonis alleged Kinnear and former AGU commander, the late Andre Lincoln, told him to go ahead with the plan because they wanted to get an arrest warrant for Modak.
Did you recruit somebody to do the job, being to execute the plan of the police? With their permission, yes.
The trial continues. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News, Western Cape High Court.
A total of 29 people have been arrested on charges of being in the country illegally in Pietermaritzburg today. Compliance raids were conducted by the KZN government along with several law enforcement agencies. Most of the people arrested were employed at some of the shops operating in the Pietermaritzburg city centre. KZN Premier Tamin Tuli says the raids were triggered by tip-offs given to authorities by the community.
It's a successful operation, and it's an operation which I decided to use it to make a call to every police station in the province of KwaZulu-Natal and to every office of home affairs in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, to every municipality, that I want them to embark on this operation, especially for September. I want the province to be at work.
And in Belgium, the country's weather agency says the 2026 summer was the hottest on record. Temperatures averaged 20.3 degrees Celsius above the mean of recent decades. This makes it the late nation to smash temperatures and its records this year. According to reports, at least 33 countries spanning from Western Europe to Central America recorded their hottest July since records began this year. The country has experienced several heat waves since June and was hit by its largest wildfire in a century last month. A fine Wednesday in store for Gauteng tomorrow, lows of between 11 and 12 degrees and highs of between 27 and 29.
Melrose heading towards Sandton, accident scene M1 northbound near Corlet, causing huge delays all the way from Killarney Bends in Ekurhuleni, Benoni. Expect about a 20-minute delay on Atlas Road. That's approaching North Rand Road due to faulty traffic lights. Still in Benoni, accident scene heading towards Emalahleni. That's the N12 eastbound opposite Lakeside Mall, causing heavy delays.
The top story in EWN, a legal showdown is looming between the ANC and the SACP in the Western Cape over the removal of Communist Party representatives from the legislature as well as municipalities.
702 Afternoons
with Relebohile Maboja, 1 to 3 p.m.
I'm wondering if it is realistic to expect all our youth and future leaders to have that access. I'm thinking looking at government and police stations and hospitals. I mean, how many computers do we see there?
Absolutely. There's obviously a shortage there, and then also the shortage in terms of the skills training, in terms of how to use it. You used the example of a policeman. You might be police trained, but you're not necessarily computer trained. But computer work and dockets become a big part of the role.
Barbara Corcut, Group General Manager of ICB.
702 Afternoons
with Relebohile Maboja.
Let's walk the talk.
Why can't Joburg keep our taps running? What needs to be done to fix our city's water supply? Can it be rectified, or are we doomed to run dry? If you want to know more about these issues, stream the Joburg Dialogues on Thursday at 6 p.m. The first in the series, this Thursday, focuses on what is happening with Joburg Water. Register to join online on ourcitynews.co.za. It's on Thursday at 6 p.m. The Joburg Dialogues, hosted by Our City News and the Johannesburg Business School.
Selection of Lucky Millions lotto draws. You could claim major jackpots when you pick numbers from thousands of daily draws. Choose numbers on UK 49s, Euro Millions, and lots more from just R5 per line. Enjoy more chances and more ways to win, all in one place. Grab your chance to celebrate extraordinary riches when you play Lucky Millions from Hollywood Bets. Bet now.
T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
I want us to play the long game. I know it's not easy, but I need a year to get some interest back.
Give your money room to grow with up to 7.6% interest. Open a 12-month Nedbank electronic fixed deposit account on the Money app and stand a chance to win an all-expenses-paid VIP Nedbank Golf Challenge experience for 2. Go to netbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
702. WhatsApp John
on 072
702
1702.
Something I think we should all get rid of is government. I think we should all find ways to govern ourselves as a society.
Yo, I'm not signing up for that. Maybe I'm too nervous, but no. I mean, I want good government. No government? No, don't think that's for me. But the question we did ask you, by the way, and there's still time to send us a couple of things. Spring cleaning time. What would you get rid of? What would you clear out? It could be possessions. You know, the traditional sense of spring cleaning is those boxes of school reports or trophies you won, like me, for the 3-legged race or whatever it was. You know, maybe time to get rid of them if you want to. But then the other thing is stuff that's in your head, in your heart, in your relationships, in your ecosystem of emotion that you might want to move out. You can talk to us about those as well. It's 20 minutes now to 5.
EWN Sport.
Anthony Teixeira, I suppose with better weather and longer days, we may as well talk about cricket.
We may indeed, John. Good afternoon. We'll start with the Proteas, where the bowlers have really backed up the batters in this T20 against Zimbabwe in the Tri-Series. Janssen, Fontaine, Subrayen and Peter have all been among the wickets. Right now, Zimbabwe 75 for 8 as they are struggling right now in the 11th over, needing 105 runs at close to 12 runs to the over. Earlier, led by a 94 from just 51 deliveries, Luandre Pretorius innings, the South Africans set a 186-run target. In football, Pitso Mosimane has been given the Bafana reins after SAFA unveiled him as the new head coach of the national team on a 4-year deal which runs until 2030. It was a full circle moment for him. In 2012, after mixed results, he was axed from the setup. He rebuilt his career, winning Mamelodi Sundowns a first CAF Champions League, and then in Egypt, he claimed back-to-back titles in that competition for the record holders Al Ahly. The coach called it a privilege and honor to be given the role once again.
There's one team that unites us all, Bafana. Today is a special day in my football career. I've learned that there are moments in this game that are bigger than a match, moments that are bigger than a club, and certainly bigger than any individual. I've been given the privilege of leading our national team. I take this responsibility knowing that I still have something to give in football, especially in my country.
Scott McTominay is set to undergo a heart procedure after discovery of a mild benign arrhythmia. Napoli made the announcement and confirmed he's only expected to be available in early October again. While in transfer news, Barcelona completed the signing of Gabriel Jesus on a permanent deal from Arsenal. Jack Grealish will return to Everton on a season-long loan from Man City. Juventus will take Nick Voltemade on a loan from Newcastle as well. The South African window is set to take advantage of FIFA's allowance and extend the individual league window by 3 weeks. It'll now close September 21st at 5 p.m. While the Betway Premiership this evening at 7:30 has a double-header. Mbombela Stadium will welcome the defending champs Orlando Pirates against Kruger United. Meanwhile, in KZN, Durban City take on Stellenbosch. And men's number 1 seed, Alexander Zverev, says he isn't too worried about the rankings as he starts his US Open against Lorenzo Sonogo this evening.
I think seedings are nice, and seedings is a great show of that you've been playing well. But I think what's the most important thing is whose name is at the end of the draw, and who's, still here in 2 weeks' time. I think that's the main goal for everybody who's in the draw.
Anthony Teixeira, Eyewitness News Sport.
EWN Traffic.
Right, this EWN Traffic is brought to you by Outsurance. SMS out to 451422 now, and you could save on car insurance. If you don't, ask them for 500 Rand. Melrose doesn't normally get jammed up. Is that on the highway or in the roads leading to it?
It's on the highway, John, the M1 North. There's an accident scene near Corlett, and this is causing huge delays from Killarney Bend. So if you're leaving Joburg heading towards Midrand, avoid the M1 North at all costs. There's also a serious accident scene. We're getting reports, John, in the Dinwiddie Germiston area. That's on Black Reef Road, also called Wits Rifles, approaching Castell Avenue, slowing down traffic in Benoni. There's about a 20-minute delay on Atlas Road, approaching North Rand Road due to faulty traffic lights. Still in Benoni, this time traveling towards Emalahleni. There's an accident scene on the N12 eastbound. That's opposite Lakeside Mall, also causing heavy delays. While in Edenville, this is traveling into Bedfordview. Bumper-to-bumper traffic, R24 westbound from Edenville Road to the Kilulis interchange. In Southgate, this is heading into Soweto. Accident scene, N12 West. This is approaching the M1 South Uncle Charlie's interchange, causing some delays. Protea Glen, Soweto. Traffic pressure on the R559 main road opposite GOG Gardens. And finally in Tshwane, Hermanstad, leaving the Pretoria CBD, expect some delays on Eskiam Pahlele. This is from Vomhagen to the R80. For the latest traffic updates, you can also follow us on X at EWN Traffic.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app. Clever excuses for being late, number 94.
I ran out of petrol and had to push my car to the petrol station.
Fortunately, with the OutSurance pointsman on the roads, you no longer have to come up with creative excuses for being late. The OutSurance pointsmen have been easing traffic congestion so we all get to where we need to be quickly and safely for the past 20 years. With OutSurance, you really always get something out. In partnership with 702, OutSurance is a licensed insurer in the FSP.
Joy of Jazz. The Standard Bank Joy of Jazz returns on September 25 and 26.
Thank you so much.
Join 702 at the Dina Lady stage. Get your tickets at Ticketmaster.
You're with John Perlman
on 702.
Earlier in this hour, I had a conversation with Songezo Zibi, leader of Rise Mzansi, also chairs Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts. And he is pushing on an issue. If you missed the interview, by the way, pick it up on primemediaplus.com, looking at whether government sufficiently tracks the employability of people depending on the degrees or qualifications that they acquire. And you know, his questioning of the ministry or the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Buti Manamela, revealed that actually government does not yet have such a system in place. He's suggesting that that prevents us from making the right decisions around where we invest, particularly public money, but not only public money, in training, in courses, in curriculum development, and so on. Raised a question for me. I mean, did what you studied prepare you and open doors for you in terms of what you ended up doing by way of work? Or was it something of a dead end that you had to somehow make a 3-point turn out of and find your way out of that road and down another one? So do give me a call on that on 011 883 0702. Did what you studied prepare you for what you ended up doing in the world of work? Anthony Teixeira, how would you answer that question?
I would say sort of, but not really.
Yeah.
Anthropology is what I studied.
Okay.
And so I would say that sports is pretty much anthropology, study of culture, And so I would say that sport is sort of an extension of someone's culture.
Yeah.
And the way in which we do deal with it in and out. So in that sense, I have the holistic view. But in terms of the actual, no, not at all.
So I mean, obviously you didn't, in the anthropology course, get broadcasting training. Did you get that anywhere else?
I did.
Or
I
did
was
you
at
learn
campus.
on the job?
I was at
Okay.
campus, and that's sort of where we learned how to talk and be on
Campus
air
radio,
and-
huh?
Yeah. And
Okay.
and I learned how to write bulletins. This is not a lie. Listening to Cindy Paluta do the sport at 5:30 in the morning.
Well, learn from the best. huh?
100%.
Yeah.
And so that's how I had to learn, and then just sort of incorporate and get little pieces here and there.
Yeah, interesting. How about you, Karabo Charlie?
Yeah,
I mean,
I went to the Wits Radio Academy. They have like a nice course there where they just actually focus on the whole dynamics of radio, from marketing to journalism to broadcasting,
Okay.
and the whole shebang. So mine definitely direct impact on where I am right now.
Yeah, I did a degree in history, so and I'm a great believer in arts courses, by the way, but although I accept that would have been at a time in the country's history, but also related to the circumstances of my life where I had an opportunity to do some of that kind of intellectual stretch. Most people, I think, possibly don't have that kind of choice now. So I would think some of what I studied taught me to read, to think, to be curious, and all those kinds of things. But I'd love your story. Those are ours. What did you study, and in what way did it guide you on the path or actually open doors for you in terms of the career you ended up choosing? Give us a call, because I think there's a national debate that's taking shape. It's a little bit discordant because it's coming from all sorts of different angles, but I do think some of what Songezo Zibi was raising is perhaps helping us to give up, to get some kind of focus on what really is a crucial question. 10 minutes to 5.
John is on X.
At John Perlman.
Well, about 5 days ago, the Independent Electoral Commission did what they always do every quarter, this covering the period of 1 April to 30 June. They published political party donations for the first quarter of the 26-27 financial year. Absolutely crucial, all of this, as the local government elections come. There's always been, for me at least, a sense that these declarations are always somewhat partial and there's more we need to know. So it was interesting to me that an organization who follows this a great deal more closely than I do, My Vote Counts, is saying that actually we need much, much stronger political funding disclosure. So what are they after and why are they saying this? Let's welcome Joel Bregman. He's project lead for Money in Politics at My Vote Counts. Mr. Bregman, welcome, and thanks very much for your time. 116.8 million in donations declared. What are your concerns that there's a whole lot of parties who appear to have a good deal of money and spend it in very public ways that not for the first time are declaring absolutely nothing? Or are you concerned with the nature of the disclosures themselves? Good afternoon.
Hi, John. Good to chat. So there are various elements that the latest disclosures bring to the surface that we think are worthy of attention. The one is, like you say, sometimes it looks like this might be only a partial disclosure. In the run-up to the 2024 elections, we saw no disclosures from parties that had very public, expensive campaigning and events. And those questions, the questions always arise, are parties simply not complying with the Act? But we must also remember parties have various forms of income. They get money from membership. There are sources of income that fall outside the ambit of the Act. We need to look very carefully at that. In the latest disclosures, obviously we're in the run-up now to the local government elections. So it's not surprising that we saw quite a large amount disclosed in a quarter compared to previous quarters. But again, there were only 4 or 5 parties who made disclosures. We must also remember that the amounts that the IEC publishes in these quarterly reports are only for donations over the disclosure threshold of 200,000 Rand in a given year. So it's very likely that many parties have been receiving lots of money under that amount, which we won't see until the IEC publishes its annual report, and then we'll only see the cumulative amount of those donations.
Yeah, I mean, just to jump in on something you said, I mean, when you refer to parties who had huge public events and a very public display of their electoral might and resources, Action SA will say they raised exactly that in regards to the economic freedom fighters and the Mkhonto Wesizwe party. Now, you seem to be drawing the conclusion that if they didn't disclose, well, they didn't need to disclose. But that does raise the question as to whether parties don't disclose because the price of not disclosing is a small one.
No, sorry, John. I mean, that wasn't my intention. So we mustn't speculate, and we can't just say things without foundation. But from on the surface, it does seem that there isn't full compliance with the Act. And when you see the directives that the IEC has to issue, for non-compliance, it's clear that parties aren't doing things properly, whether it's late disclosure or not disclosure. But it is, and it's something which we've also tried to ascertain. We've written to political parties to explain, how are you doing this? And we obviously haven't received anything.
Do they just ignore you?
We have been ignored, yes.
Yeah, no, and you're asking important questions. I mean, I'm looking at the statement you put out, and this was on yesterday, in fact, and you're saying one of the things is the information provided is inadequate where there is disclosure. So, for example, if I look at, examples that you give, there's an example given where there's an initial and a surname. What are you saying we need more? I mean, some people we recognize, for example, a contribution from M. Moshal. Martin Moshal is a well-known contributor in politics, so no more questions need to be asked there. But what for you would constitute a more user-friendly disclosure?
Sure. So for companies, it would help if we saw the trust, the company numbers, registration numbers, trust numbers. For individuals who don't have high public profiles, it becomes very difficult to ascertain who those people are. But the bigger issue, and something which we're starting to engage with at the moment, is that if a company can donate, we can then go onto the CIPC website. We can establish who the directors are. We can figure out who's the head of the company. But behind that is the shareholders, people who actually, for public companies that are traded, who actually own the company. They are actually the beneficial owners of these companies. So it's another layer that is hidden. And a key part of this is providing information, powerful information to voters so they can understand who's funding political parties. But we actually need to know the names, behind companies, which is hidden,
But why would they be hidden? I mean, because you're referring, if they're listed companies, it's in the company reports. If they're not listed, there's CIPC. I mean, the IEC might turn around and say, hey, we're busy enough already. If people like yourselves and I as a journalist would be hugely interested in the questions you're raising, if you want to find that out, go and dig. I mean, if there's deliberate deception, I understand that. If somebody, for example, puts in information that's false or, creates shells that actually conceal the source. But if the source is kind of there, surely the rest of the digging is for us to do.
Well, it shouldn't have to be that every time we want to find out, the sort of level of information that we need to make PI applications or scour reports when this is information that could easily be part of the disclosures. It would make them a lot more powerful and a lot more meaningful for people to actually understand the flow of money in our political system.
Yeah, and why do you think that's so important?
Well, I mean, we come from a very recent history of this being completely hidden in the dark. So, this law came into being in April 2021, and prior to that, parties could and did take money from any sources without having to disclose. Of course, they were not allowed to take from the proceeds of crime, and there were laws governing general political donations. But I mean, we've lived through the Gupta years. We're still seeing that, and we need to really minimize the spaces in which those sort of illegal practices can occur.
And just finally, I mean, as I say, the IEC has enough on their plates, and perhaps I'm cutting them too much slack. But are they working with I wouldn't say unworkable law, but a law that's still got more gums than teeth?
The law. So that's one of the reasons we went to court, and to strengthen. We challenged the law on various aspects, saying it doesn't go far enough to promote transparency and accountability. And the IEC, it established the political funding unit to administer the law. We know that it's underfunded, that it has minimal people and resources working there. But at the end of the day, the law itself it's full of loopholes. It's not strong enough, and that's why we're continuing to advocate for a stronger political funding act.
And just finally, I mean, a political party could say, hey, listen, we've got loads of money because we've got loads of membership. People love our message. We made a call for funds. People are coming in, 50 Rand here, 4,000 there. If we're unable to, or maybe a system already exists, so people can say, okay, fine, we get that. You got 10 million Rand in all these smaller donations. Is the IEC empowered to then go and say, can we check your records? Did you get?
Absolutely.
Did you? They've got the power to do that. Do they ever exercise it?
They do. So the IEC has quite wide-ranging inspection and compliance powers in the Act. Again, the issue I think is one of capacity and resource. But what's very useful, what I think a lot of people don't know about, is in addition to these quarterly disclosures, every year the IEC releases an annual political funding report, which covers private donations above the threshold, which is what we see in these disclosures.
Yes.
But it also covers the cumulative amount of all other income for the political party, including public funding, but also things like membership. So the EFF, they regularly get 40-50 million Rand in membership fees, which is not insignificant. Parties also take out loans amounting, tens of millions of rands. And in a recent report covering the 2023-24 year, the ANC declared more than 400 million Rand in income outside the ambit of the Act. So we really need to look at holistically at the whole party funding picture.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll have to leave it there, unfortunately. Joel Bregman joining us from My Vote Counts.
What's for dinner tonight, South Africa? Hiya, Jamie Oliver here. Dinner stress? Forget it. I've teamed up with Checkers to bring you some of my favourite recipes the whole family will love. Starting with my gorgeous spring veg stew, one pan, loads of veg, no fuss. Shop the ingredients on Checkers 6060 and boom, delivered in 60 minutes. Every week, 5 brand new dinner ideas. Checkers, dinner done better.
Moving to a bigger office space can be expensive. Thanks to My Way Business Insurance, I get to save up to 20% on my insurance premiums every month. Plus, I Get My Business Assist, which helps me with marketing, legal, and admin services. Saving money while growing my business is a great win for me.
Switch to My Way Business Insurance and save up to 20% on your monthly premiums. Real businesses, real savings. Call us on 0860 646464 today for a quote. My Way is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. Standard rates and T's and C's apply.
This is EWN.
Libya struggles to answer questions over Port Shepstone drug theft, and Brown Mokhotsi denies a plot to escape from prison. Good afternoon, I'm Bali Dlamini. Retired former Hawks head Godfrey Libya has been struggling to give reasons behind his failure to order a disciplinary hearing into the theft of a major drug consignment in KZN. Libya testified before the Madlanga Commission today on the theft of over 500 kilograms of drugs from the Hawks Port Shepstone office in 2021. The consignment was first uncovered near Durban before being transported to the Hawks office at the order of then KZN Hawks head Lesija Sinona. The drugs were stored in a facility with malfunctioning security systems where break-ins had previously occurred. Despite a recommendation to investigate Sinona's handling of the matter, Libya failed to act. Instead, he approved Sinona's request to conduct polygraph tests on several officers, some who were not involved in the matter.
And you could have exercised your discretion to subject him to the same polygraph examination that he subjected his officers for less.
I think that the experienced person who have got all of those that you have read will not necessarily conclude that because you have got a key, you need to go through the polygraph. So it is a discretion that you apply your mind.
Libya is now facing allegations that he failed in his mandate as the senior accounting officer at the time.
It seems to me that it can only be one of two things, given your level of experience and expertise, is that you were either covering up or defending a General Sinona, or there was just a complete dereliction of your duties as the head of DPCI. There can be no other explanation.
It is neither of the two, Commissioner.
The chairperson of Parliament's Impeachment Committee believes the ongoing legal challenges to the Section 89 inquiry are to be expected. Makashulekana says he does not view President Cyril Ramaphosa's litigation against the work of the committee as dictating its timeframes. Ramaphosa's review of the parliamentary report that has given rise to the inquiry will be heard by the Western Cape High Court tomorrow. Ramaphosa is facing impeachment in connection with the theft of US dollars stolen from his Palapala farm in 2020. Today, the committee resolved to rescind its decision for Advocate Thandazani Madonsela to be appointed as the evidence leader following objections from Ramaphosa. Speaking after that meeting, Ghana emphasized the importance of fairness and due process.
If we do not adhere to the Constitution and the rules and the law carefully, we expose the process to further legal challenges. It is therefore better to deal with a matter properly when it arises than to rush a decision and create difficulties later. Legal challenges were, in any event, something I anticipated when I accepted this responsibility.
The committee will reconvene next week to consider a new shortlist of possible candidates to serve as evidence leader. Self-proclaimed political fixer Brown Mokhotsi has told the courts that the idea of escaping from police custody has not crossed his mind. Mokhotsi was back in the Johannesburg High Court today, where he has again been trying to secure his release on bail. His initial attempts were dismissed for reasons primarily linked to the failure to confirm his residential address. He is facing charges related to allegedly staging his own assassination attempt in November last year. Just last week, investigators claimed to have evidence that Mokhotsi was planning his escape, but today, while on the witness stand, he denied any such plan.
I have never attempted worship. Today I can confirm the face Brown Mokhotsi. No one doesn't know in South Africa. Even if that mind could come, I don't think I'll even cross the tar road. Everyone, if once the matter is postponed, everyone knows the matter is postponed. Brown Mokhotsi is in custody. It does not come into my mind.
And in Zambia, President Hakainde Hichilema has been sworn in for a second term. Thousands of cheering supporters were present to witness Hichilema taking the oath of office at a ceremony attended by a handful of African leaders. According to official results, the 64-year-old won 60% of the vote, followed by former provincial government minister Brian Mundubule on 38%. The vote was marred by allegations of intimidation, pro-government bias and restrictions on the opposition. While Hichilema has been credited with steering Zambia through a major economic turnaround, critics say the economic growth is yet to translate into better living conditions. Gold is trading at $4,364.21 an ounce. The rand is at 16.12 to the dollar, 21.82 to the pound, 18.67 to the euro, and Brent crude oil is at $92.21 a barrel.
City of Tshwane leaving the Pretoria CBD expects some delays in Hermanstad on Eskiam Pahlele between Wormhagen and the R18. Still leaving the Pretoria CBD, this time heading towards Capital Park. Traffic remains sluggish on Paul Kruger between Madiba Street and Flower Street, and in Lombardy Estate expect heavy delays on Graham Linwood Road between Boschkop Road and Simon Vermeulen.
And in your sport, Betway Premiership returns with Orlando Pirates, the defending champs, against Kruger United, and Durban City taking on Stellenbosch. Meanwhile, the Proteas are chasing the last 2 wickets against Zimbabwe in their T20 in the Tri-Series. We also have the first round of the US Open set to conclude at Flushing Meadows.
A fine Wednesday in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Johannesburg dropping to overnight lows of 11 degrees, peaking at 28. Pretoria 12 and 29, and Vereeniging 11 and 27 degrees. The top story in EWN. Retired former Hawks head Godfrey Libya is struggling to give reasons behind his failure to order a disciplinary hearing following the theft of a major drug consignment in KZN.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
7:02.
Drive home with John Perlman.
John Perlman, 3 to 6 p.m.
On 92.7 and 106 FM. Let's walk the talk.
7:02 Drive, it's 8 minutes past 5. It's great to have you with us for the last hour of the show. Coming up, we're going to be looking back on what happened in yet another eventful day at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. Some quite extraordinary testimony and in response to questions by former head of the Hawks, General Godfrey Libya, now refers to himself as Dr. Godfrey Libya. He's no longer in the police and heading the Hawks, but he was questioned about steps he took after hundreds of millions of rands worth of cocaine was stolen from a police office, a Hawks office down in Port Shepstone. And many of you are already familiar with this. Just another one of those things that the police are involved with. There was also some arm wrestling over the non-appearance at the commission of Major General Feroz Khan. Lots of interesting stuff. Karinda Jagmohan, our EWN reporter, has been watching that closely and joins us soon with that. And then I'm going to ask a couple of questions about working in the hotel industry. First of all, I'm very interested to know, do you work in hotels? Have you ever worked in hotels? And if you've got stories to tell, please share them with us. The reason we're talking about this, I suppose the prompt, there were two of them. The one was last week, we spoke about a significant increase in tourism levels in South Africa in the month of July, both year on year, but also June to July. So tourism clearly going through a pretty good patch. But are we training people to work in our hotels, or do people kind of get in the door and learn on the job? We'll explore that question with my final guest of the half hour. Stephen Hickmore is director of the Swiss Hotel School, and he'll have some insights on what the current trends are and how people can start making their way in what I'm sure is a very interesting job, but probably quite a demanding one as well. But your stories, please, of working in hotels, I'd love to hear them on 072 702 1702.
You're with John Perlman
on 702.
Good day, 702 lenders. Yes, I did BCom Economics and Economic Management Analysis Ended up being a full-time business person, a business strategist, and an economic analyst during COVID. And I've been writing opinion pieces and consulting with firms. So yes, what I studied, I'm not corporate with it, but
Hi, John and the team. I would say for me, yes, the type of career that I chose, it really did prepare me. I did maths and science at school, and I went on to do engineering at varsity, and of which it was the first, the second, and the third choice. I really didn't have anything else in mind. It really opened doors for me, bursaries to study, as I didn't have money from my parents, and also in terms of work. So thankfully, and I am so grateful for it, it is Linden here in Kalame. Thank you.
Hi, John. It's Gail here. I just like to say that often the higher degree, actually, it's almost irrelevant as to what you studied. I've always landed jobs because of the fact that I had a degree. I had an honors degree in zoology, and that is an indication that a person can do. So I don't think it's the end of the world if you do what I did. For example, after my zoology, I got a education diploma, went to my first high school and was told I had to teach maths. And then the maths department were all dying to get out of teaching, all went for a computer aptitude test, and I went with them and ended up a computer programmer. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, really, really interesting mix of responses. Thank you. I mean, some people pretty much going down the highway, I wouldn't say toll free, but certainly in a very, very straight line. And then for other people, a little bit of a winding road, but picking up skills and acknowledgement of your ability to learn and study, a sense of your excellence that serves you well, even though you don't end up doing what it is that you actually thought you were going to do when you set off on a course of study. Still interested in your answer, please. Send it to us, 072 702 1702, 13 minutes past 5.
Drive home with John Perlman
On 702. Let's walk the talk.
So we had a really interesting conversation earlier about the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz. That is one of the highlights of this new month. It's taking place on the 25th and 26th of September at the Sandton Convention Center. If you haven't been before, I really, really advise that you do. It's a huge amount of fun. Little bit overwhelming. There's a lot on the program, but you can't see everything, so don't try and see everything. Pick a couple of things and go to those and just soak it all in. But we talked to the artist Buhle Bendalo about, firstly, her Busi Mhlongo tribute that she's going to be performing with others, and then, what she as an artist gets out of immersing herself into the musical. I was going to call it a stew, but it's not a stew at all. The musical wonderland that is provided by the Joy of Jazz. So in recognition of this, we thought that our music feature today would be to ask you simply this: what's the song or the artist, but if you choose an artist, do give us a song that got you really interested, not just in jazz, but in South African jazz. Great, great songs coming out of this country, like this one, for example, by Sipho Gumede. When Days Are Dark, Friends Are Few. That came out in 1998. Your memories may go forward or back of that particular date and that particular song. But either way, send it to us, please, on 072 702 1702. 5:15.
EWN Traffic.
This EWN Traffic is brought to you by Outsurance. SMS the word out to 451 142 now, and you could save on car insurance. If you don't, ask them for 500 Rand. Delays out in Benoni. Karabo Charlie has the details.
Yeah, if you're leaving Benoni heading towards Emelahleni, expect heavy delays. There's an accident scene on the N12 eastbound. This is opposite Lakeside Mall, and it's causing about a 30-minute delay all the way from Croft Road. Benoni still traffic sluggish on Atlas Road. This is approaching North Rand Road due to faulty traffic lights. Still in Ekurhuleni, bumper traffic on the R24 westbound that's traveling into Bedfordview between Edenvale Road and the Kilulis interchange. Illiondale, Kempton Park, expect about a 20-minute delay. This is on Modderfontein Road from Greenstone Mall all the way to Parkland Drive in Pumville, Soweto. Traffic congested on Chris Hani Road from Mujaji Street all the way to Klipspruit Valley Road. That's opposite Maponya Mall. Heading towards Capital Park, leaving the Pretoria CBD, traffic sluggish on Paul Kruger from Madiba Street to Flower Street, while in Lombardy Estate, expect delays on Graham Linwood Road between Boschkop and Simon Vermeulen. If you come across any other traffic issues, kindly WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
It's okay if you don't know how to solve a Rubik's Cube, but do you know how much money Outsurance could be saving you on your car insurance? With Outsurance, 48-year-old Sylvia saves an incredible 802 Rand a month on her 2019 BMW X1. Switch to Outsurance today. You too could be one quote away from having more money in your pocket every month. SMS out to 45142. That's out to 45142. Licensed insurer and FSP, TCs and information online.
You're with John Perlman on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
702 Drive. All right, let's go to the Madlanga Commission from today. The bits I saw were extremely interesting. Two parts, I think, to the day. On the one hand, the legal wrangling, if I can call it that, arm wrestling, maybe a better description, probably neither of them adequate, for a rather intricate conversation around the non-appearance of Major General Feroz Khan today, and then continued testimony and close scrutiny, I think it's fair to say, of the former head of the Hawks, Godfrey Lebert. Keeping an eye on both and the day in its entirety, our EWN reporter, Karinda Jagmohan. Karinda, good afternoon to you. Let's start with Major General Feroz Khan. I mean, first of all, what was resolved? I mean, is he going to come to the commission? Do we have a date?
John, we do have a date, and that's the 28th of September. His testimony has been postponed until then, and he may only be excused if there is an independent examination approved by both the Commission as well as himself, and that examiner declares that he is unfit to testify. And upon that, the nature of his diagnosis must be disclosed. They don't have to give the precise details in terms of symptoms and treatment, but he must say why he is unfit to testify. That was the ruling after quite lengthy debate, you're right, today, regarding his absence, essentially.
In terms of the actual back and forth, I mean, I caught some of it. What struck me is very interesting, and again, because I'm dipping in and out, please do tell me if I've got the wrong end of anything, but it seemed to me that Adila Hassim, who was evidence leader today in this particular matter, was saying that there were serious questions around some of the medical documentation that was provided in support of Feroz Khan and his absences. Clarify all of that for us in some details if you can.
That's correct. So she has revealed these medical sick notes that Khan submitted to his head at the time, that's Crime Intelligence Head, Dumisani Kumalo, earlier this year, in which he says, and this was before the alleged shooting incident, in which he said that he had been suffering from depression and therefore he had required sick leave. But then they found that those notes were actually backdated, and there's some concerns about apparent forgery, accusations of forgery around this. Now, the reason why we can discuss these sick notes is it has been made publicly available via Khan's separate label labor court processes, in which General Dumisani Khumalo, who leads crime intelligence, questions why around the time that Khan said that he was sick and unable to come to work, he on a Sunday night was driving a car at about 11 o'clock at the time that he was allegedly shot. So all of these questions coming up, and then questions about that sick note perhaps being forged. The defense by Khan's attorney is that Khan's son requested a change of the sick note, but he can't really explain why, and that is why there was this back and forth, and it raised a serious concern about how Khan is presenting these apparent medical ailments to seemingly not either attend work or, in this case, not attend the commission. And that is why the commission has now resolved that if you are sick, if you say you are sick and you can't come, we want a second opinion, and we want that opinion then to be declared to the public, essentially, because it has been argued that Khan is a public officer, he's a public figure, and the public wants him to be held accountable. So they need to know.
And just finally, I mean, bracketing either side of the arguments back and forth around Major General Feroz Khan, Karinda, was continued questioning of the former head of the Hawks, now Dr. Godfrey Lebert. Again, please correct me if I misheard, but to me, a quite extraordinary exchange where he said that his investigations, to the extent that he was involved into all those drugs that disappeared from the Hawks office in Port St. John's, did not in any way extend to the man who had the keys to the safe. Did I hear that correctly? And were the commissioners as bewildered by this as I am?
Actually, yes, I would say the lack of investigations, because that is exactly what it is that Libya, as the senior most accounting officer of the DPCI, failed to actually carry out internal investigations into why over 200 million rand worth of cocaine that was stored at a facility, firstly, that had no proper security, the cameras weren't working, the alarms weren't working, there were previous breaking attempts at that facility, why it was stored there and ultimately stolen. So we now have learnt more. KZN Hawks head at the time, Lesetja Senona, admits that he gave the order to move the consignment from Isipingo, over 100 kilometers south to Port Shepstone and store that there. He said because they had storage issues. Libya claims that he never knew about this, and he only knew that over 200 million rand worth of drugs were in that Hawks facility after it was stolen. That's 4 months after the fact. So we now know that there was a report that recommended he investigate the provincial manager for handling the situation, or allegedly mishandling the situation. That's Sonona. And Libya failed to reasonably explain why he did not conduct any investigations. The evidence leader said, well, please, you can put on your detective thinking cap and think that this is the person who had the keys to that office. Shouldn't they be a person of interest? And Libya's excuse is, well, the theft didn't happen by way of key, it happened by way of break-in. However, we know that there are allegations that this crime scene was mishandled, there are allegations that this was an inside job. And we also now know that Libya signed off on Sonona's request to conduct a polygraph test on at least 42 officers, some who weren't even part of the situation. And Libya did so without conceding to this, or without actually thinking about Sonona being part of the investigations. We also now know that Libya signed a document approving a criminal investigation that's separate from the Hawks investigation, approving a number of officers to conduct those investigations, one of whom was the officers who transported the drugs to Port Shepstone. That's Lieutenant Colonel Dina Govender, who took to the stand yesterday.
Yeah, it really, I mean, I must stop saying another extraordinary day at the Madlanga Commission, but I don't know what else to say, because every day just reveals stuff about the way all of this has been going down over literally decades, it seems. 24 minutes past 5.
Drive home with John Perlman
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
So, just as a curiosity, in the United States, today is National Hotel Employee Day, and the subtitle, Celebrating the People Behind Hospitality. That caught my eye, but it caught my eye in the context of a conversation that we had with Chiviwa Chivengba, who's one of the leaders in our tourism industry in South Africa, about how numbers are going up and went up very nicely in July. So I then thought, well, who trains people who work in our hotels? And is there indeed growth in these jobs, or are we just picking up capacity that we had pre-COVID. Stephen Hickmore is director of the Swiss Hotel School and joins us now. Mr. Hickmore, welcome and thanks very much for giving us your time. Are we seeing a demand for new jobs and a demand for the kind of training that you offer? Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, John. Thank you for having me on the program. So, short answer, absolutely yes. And we're seeing more of a demand from students to be able to join the industry. You know, whereas the industry sometimes, hospitality industry and hotels, has been looked at as a second choice, what we're seeing now is more and more bright young people looking at the expansive job opportunities the hospitality industry can give, countrywide and also worldwide. So to be able to meet the demand of increasing tourism, then we need more and more people in management. We need more and more people as chefs, as restaurant management, and to be able to run these really quite complex operations.
And how much of the job can be taught through lectures and seminars and so on, and how much of it is like, okay, we're going to get you work ready so that you can then go and learn the job?
I think work ready is the absolute necessity. These days, the way that it would work within a modern hotel school or university or college, there tend to be applied type degrees,
right.
Which then give the experience as well as then giving the necessary academics. So a quick, for instance, would be a 6-month internship. That I know that we do a 6-month internship, paid internship, mostly overseas with our young students on the chef courses and on the 3-year degree programs. So yes, experience is absolutely vital. So the good thing about hospitality industry is you can join it without qualifications. But if you join it with qualifications, then you're certainly starting to create a strong career in that sector.
I mean, I would imagine, this is just a final thought, Stephen Hickmore, I mean, personality types that are best suited, I know it will depend on the job, but I'm thinking of kind of customer-facing stuff, reception. Let's just focus on reception. You're going to meet some really nice people, and you're going to meet some people who are extremely difficult, not least because they might be jet-lagged. I mean, is there a type best suited, or is it come in, give it a try, and, you know, learn to bite your tongue and smile at the same time? I don't know how you do that at the same time.
You know, I think it's very difficult, but I do think you can learn it.
Yes.
When somebody starts off in hospitality in hotels, then it can be terribly intimidating, especially if you're young. As you sort of grow older and you gain the experience of having been in those situations, then you become more confident. But the personality type, it does help a lot if you're a good, strong communicator. But the good thing is that you do grow within that role. I mean, I was evidently quite a quiet young man.
Yes.
And just in finishing, I'm certainly not a quiet old man.
Yeah.
So it does develop you.
Thank you so much, Stephen Hickmore. Lots more to talk about. We'll have you back and explore some things a little more specifically. But again, my question, do you work in hotels? Have you worked in hotels? Tell us some stories. I bet they're good. 072 702 1702. 28 minutes past 5.
EWN Business.
Trading finished in Johannesburg, underway in the United States, and of course there is a money show between 6 and 8, covering all of that and more. Stephen Curtis.
John, thank you. Good afternoon. The JSE All Share ending the day down 0.35%. There's a lot going on internationally. Higher oil prices, concerns about tighter interest rates. That's leading to a spike in 10-year bond yields. Financials are down 0.5%. Industrials are down 0.36%. Resources are down 1.13%. Canal Plus down 9% on the JSE, up 9%, excuse me. Northern up 5.75%, MTN up 4.5%. Interesting to see some of the consumer groups doing nicely today. So Pick n Pay and Tiger Brands are up nearly 2%. Clicks and Karoo are up by over 3%. But others like Mr. Price, Italtal, they're down by around 3% on the day. Valterra, the platinum producer, they're up 2%. And then Tungela, after some gains yesterday, down 4.46%, while Pan African Resources down 4% as well on the day. And Naspers down down 2.5%. Quite a lot of corporate news. So ShopRite buying the Vida coffee chain. Are you a Vida guy, John? Do you have a particular brand?
I don't drink coffee at all. So
really?
Easy.
I quite enjoyed being friends. Oh, well, you know.
Yeah. We can still meet up. I'll have tea, you have coffee.
Okay. It's not Vida's not my favorite, I must say. But we'll speak to the, dare I call him the chief barista at ShopRite, Peter Engelbrecht, on the Money Show. Their like-for-like sales in their SA Supermarkets division were up 2%. Their headline earnings for the year were up by over 12%. Cecil able to bring their headline earnings up by 9%. Their EBITDA, their profit was up. It was 61 billion rand. Higher oil prices a major factor. They're using some of that to pay back debt. And Sea Harvest saying there's been firm global demand for sustainable seafood. Problems with pilchards, though. Their nets are coming up empty. All sorts of problems there. And they had what they called the weakest pelagic fishing season on record. And the investment firm Brimstone, their headline earnings up 4% in the 6 months to the end of June. That sell-off in global bond markets deepening. The Japanese 10-year bond yield hitting 3% for the first time in about 30 years, affecting bonds in the US, Germany, and the UK as well, and that's having an impact on US markets. The Dow Jones is down 0.4%, the Nasdaq is down 0.79%, the S&P 500 is down nearly 0.5%. The gold price, $4,355.97, platinum $1,771.30, Brent crude $92.40. The rand to the dollar, 16.11, to the euro 18.68, to the British pound 21.80. On the Money Show tonight, ShopRite will speak to the CEO at Sabanya. We'll speak to the Chief Financial Officer at Sasol. Lots to talk there. John, 75 years of Volkswagen making cars in South Africa. Had a bit of an argument with my technical producer about which VW advert we'll play on the Money Show. You played one quite recently. We finally come to an agreement over which one it's going to be. But we'll speak to their South African CEO this evening. And then what you need to know about the stock market and personal finance tonight. Stephen Grootes, EWN Business.
Great mix in the lineup as always. It's on from 6 until 8 in the company of Stephen Grootes. 28 minutes to 6. Let's now join the company of Mbali Dlamini. She's got the news for you here and further afield. Good afternoon.
Thanks, John. Good afternoon. While the IEC has rejected claims by the ANC that its website prevented the party from submitting its candidate list for the upcoming local government elections. In a statement released earlier, the ANC said it was unable to capture all of its candidates on the IEC system because of a technical glitch. The deadline for candidate list submissions was last week, Friday. Alfara Mushwana has more.
The ANC says it is engaging the IEC to ensure all its candidate lists for the November 4 elections are captured after failing to submit them before the deadline. But the IEC says there are no such engagements and it will not allow any party, including the ANC, to add candidates to their lists now that the deadline has passed. The Commission has also questioned why the ANC waited until the 11th hour to submit its candidate lists on the IEC's online system. It says the system was open for 2 weeks, giving all political parties enough time to submit their lists. This now means the ANC may be unable to contest the elections in municipalities where it failed to submit its candidate lists. Alfa Ramshwana, Eyewitness News.
Some CPUT students have expressed concerns about the impact that the suspension of classes is having on their academic progress. Classes were suspended 2 weeks ago following student protests over issues including the institution's financial decisions. The university says it is still in discussions about when classes will actually resume. The student told EWN that while he believes the concerns raised are valid, he is worried about the impact this disruption is having on his studies.
Well, I'm an honors student. We're supposed to be doing research where we are, and then we obviously have consultations we need to present in class for that research. So now we can't. For an example, my lecturer has pushed back dates, so meaning that we'll probably finish later in the year because we were expected to do that final presentation in October, but now it has been pushed further back.
He says he hopes that the academic program will resume soon.
Just hope that it could be resolved quickly. We really need to get back to school so that we can continue with the academic year. So I'm just hoping the university has a plan around this so that things don't get delayed further.
And in the UK, former Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced his decision to stand down as a Member of Parliament. That decision comes weeks after he resigned as Britain's Prime Minister, having lost the support of his local Labour Party. Experts say his tenure was marked by several damaging U-turns and a failure to connect with the voters. Starmer says he will now turn his focus to international affairs. A fine Wednesday in store for Gauteng tomorrow, lows of between 11 and 12 degrees and highs of between 27 and 29.
Elondale, Kempton Park expect more than a 20-minute delay on Morafontein Road. This is between Greenstone Mall and Parkland Drive, while in Pimville, Soweto, traffic congested on Chris Hani Road from Mujaji Street to Klipspruit Valley Road. That's opposite Maponya Mall. And heading out of the Pretoria CBD, heading towards Capital Park, traffic sluggish on Paul Kruger from Madiba Street to Flower Street.
The top story in EWN, the IEC has rejected claims by the ANC that its website prevented the party from submitting its candidate list for the upcoming local government elections.
The Midday Report.
Weekdays,
12 to 1.
Kito Mosimane announced as the coach of Bafana Bafana.
I take this responsibility knowing that I still have something to give in football, especially in my country. I do so with many years of experience at the moment, but also with even deeper appreciation of what it means to lead Bafana Bafana.
14 years after he left this job, Peter Mosimane is back and he is officially South Africa's most successful coach, which kind of speaks to the work that he did.
The Midday Report
With Mandy Wiener.
12 to 1 on 702.
702.
Experience the race day rush with Hollywood Bets and Jetix. Activate aviation adrenaline for a chance to win one of two once-in-a-lifetime ultimate Abu Dhabi Grand Prix experiences and your share of 1 million rand in cash. Ready to go full throttle? Bet 10 rand or more on Jetix and you could jet off to the United Arab Emirates. Competition runs 10 August to 30 September 2026. Bet now. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
This advert is paid for by the political party concerned.
You know, my son can't find work, and every day another business closes down. What hope does he have when everything is falling apart? I want our town working for all. So in this election, I'm voting Democratic Alliance.
This advert was paid for by the political party concerned.
702. WhatsApp John
on 072
702
1702.
Good afternoon, John and the team. This is Mekeji from Mapleton. For me, I studied law way back in 2000. And then I do, I'm sure, 3 years, and then I dropped out. I worked in media until 2020 when our company was closed down because of COVID. And then beginning of 2020, just before lockdown, I went back and enrolled again with UNISA, say that I want to complete my LLB. And then guess what? After our retrenchment, I stayed home 2020, 2021. And then in 2022, I got my job in government and then at Department of Justice. And now I'm using my qualification right for what I'm doing. Yeah, for me, it was direct. Thank you. Great shows always.
Yeah, I mean, fascinating stories from people and lovely message because a lot of resilience required there. You know, you start on one course, you move into something that's going well. COVID gets us in its cold, icy, clammy grip. I mean, people have had to deal with a huge amount, and it's interesting. The question we were asking, by the way, is did what you study prepare you for what you ended up doing? 702 Drive, 21 minutes to 6.
EWN Sport.
Anthony Teixeira, so Proteas in action up against Zimbabwe, doing how well?
Yeah, they did exceptionally well. It's actually all wrapped up as the Proteas have now booked their spots in the T20 Tri-Series final. That's thanks to back-to-back victories over Zimbabwe. Today, it was a 43-run win after Luandre Pretorius struck a quick-fire 94 to see the South Africans post 185 for 7. The response saw Bjorn Fontaine take 4 for 24 as the Zimbabweans were all out for 142. While the Betway Premiership today will take to the field with match day 5. Durban City take on Stellenbosch, and the defending champs Orlando Pirates have a chance to extend their lead at the top of the table when they head to Kruger United. After qualifying for a fifth successive MTN 8 final this past weekend, Coach Abdeslam Wadou says the side is beginning to find its identity.
We move on. I think game by game we start to improve. Still some areas to work on. But my job is not to look for excuses. It's to build, to find solutions, and to keep bringing success and to win.
Simultaneous kickoff at 7:30, while Peter Mosamane says he wants to get all of South Africa behind Bafana Bafana. The coach was talking after being unveiled as Hugo Broos's successor. He comes into the national setup after major improvements which saw them make their first appearance at a World Cup in 16 years.
That is one of the special things about the national team. It reminds us of what it feels like when a country stands together. It is captured in our national anthem, sounds the call to come together, and united we shall stand. And when Bafana Bafana takes the field, we have an opportunity to make those words that's in the anthem, to make them real. One South Africa behind one team.
And in tennis, day 3 of the 2026 US Open will see the conclusion of the first round. Yulia Putintseva up against Belinda Bencic on court. While still to come, Mira Andreeva, Elise Mertens and Iva Jovic will all head out. In the men's draw, Alex de Minaur, Rafa Yoda and Taylor Fritz all getting started at Flushing Meadows, while men's top seed Alexander Zverev will take on Lorenzo Sonego. After his French Open success, he's itching to get a second Grand Slam.
Of course, there's some level of satisfaction for me that I've finally won one. I think I've said it a million times. But also you realize one thing, once you win one, you want to win more. And you want to keep going and you want to play your best tennis every time you're on a tennis court. I feel like I have done it after the French Open, and then I haven't done it the last 2 tournaments. But I definitely feel like my game has been coming back.
Anthony Teixeira, Eyewitness News Sport.
EWN Traffic.
Okay, let's update you on the way things are looking out on the roads. Delays in Midrand. Karabo Chali with the details.
Yeah, Midrand heading towards Kluerkop Tembisa. There's heavy delays on Allendale Road between Old Pretoria Road and Mastiff. In Edenvale, we still have bumper-to-bumper traffic. This is driving into Bedfordview on the R24 westbound from Edenvale Road to the Gilulis interchange in Illiondale, Kempton Park. Expect more than a 20-minute delay on Modderfontein Road between Greenstone Mall and Parkland Drive. There's still bumper-to-bumper traffic driving through Bromfontein and Joburg CBD heading towards Boyson's M1 South from Killarney Bands to the Crown Interchange in the capital. Expect some delays in Hermanstad on Eskiam Pahlele from Wormhagen to the R80. Also heading towards Capital Park, leaving the CBD of Pretoria. Traffic is sluggish on Paul Kruger from Madiba Street to Flower Street. Lombardy Estate can still expect some delays on Graham Linwood Road between Boschkop and Simon Vermeulen. If you come across any other traffic issues, kindly WhatsApp us on 072 702 1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
You're with John Perlman
on 702.
702 Drive. Okay, so we're focusing in our music feature today on not just jazz, but on South African jazz. And we've asked you the question, what South African artists, and in maybe it was a particular song, either way, if it isn't a particular song but an artist, choose your favorite by that artist. But we're going to spend some time enjoying South African jazz for a number of reasons. One, there is so much to enjoy, but we are also starting to gear up for what is going to be one of September's highlights, the 2026 Standard Bank Joy of Jazz Festival. We've had some live performances here at our building in Sandton and people are really starting to look forward to 2 days of very, very, very special music. So I asked you a little bit earlier, South African jazz artist, a song that got you turned on not just to the genre, but to what South Africa has made of it over many decades. Let's take a listen to one of your voice notes.
702. WhatsApp John
on 072
702
1702.
Hi, John. My favorite South African jazz song that got me hooked is Lonely from Ernie Smith. Yeah, that's the one that got me hooked, and I'm not a good fisherman. Have a good one. Cheers. Sawan Chenyuriya, Glen Vista.
Way back in 2001, Ernie Smith. That one is called Lonely. Keep sending us your song suggestions, please. We are getting some good ones, but you can never have enough, you know. Let's have yours on 072 702 1702. 13 minutes to 6.
702 afternoons
with Relebohile Mabota, 1 to 3 p.m.
I'm wondering if it is realistic to expect all our youth and future leaders to have that access. I'm thinking looking at government and police stations and hospitals. I mean, how many computers do we see there?
Absolutely. There's obviously a shortage there, and then also the shortage in terms of the skills training in terms of how to use it. You use the example of a policeman. You might be police trained, but you're not necessarily computer trained. But computer work and dockets become a big part of the role.
Barbara Corcutt, Group General Manager of ICB.
702 afternoons
with Relebohile Mabota.
Let's walk the talk.
702 proudly presents the Dina Letty stage at the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz 2026.
We're gonna have some fun. You guys ready?
This is Jazz Reignited.
Jazz.
Get your tickets at Ticketmaster.
Well, speaking of that Dina Letty stage, which we're so involved in, the artist lineup there is really fantastic. Ibrahim Malouf will be there, McCoy Mkhubata, Judith Sepuma, and one of the artists who is going to be performing there is Thandiswa Mazwai, who is doing a tribute to Hugh Masekela. We got a small sample of it earlier today, and this is what she had to say about the work that she's busy sharpening up and getting ready, and that she's going to be sharing with us at the end of September.
Brahu always used to tell me that, he would say, Miriam made me. Miriam taught me all the songs that I knew, that I went to America with. It was Miriam who made me. And I now say that Brahu made me. He taught me so many amazing songs. He took me around the world. And this next song is from one of my favorite albums by Brahu called The Union of South Africa, where he is performing with Ntate Jonas Kwangwa and Ntate Kaifa Semenya. This one is called Mamani. riperile chango
Yeah, that gives you some idea of what Thandiswa Mazwa is going to be doing at the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz, the work she is presenting, a tribute to Hugh Masekela. And you heard her with that wonderful eloquence talking about what exactly he meant in her life. And I'm sure there'll be so much more as she introduces the songs at the end of September. It's 10 minutes to 6.
Hi, John. Please play our South African lady Miriam Altman, The Train. It's beautiful. Thanks, Patsy.
5.8 MTN's gained. Hi, John. For me, it's Winston Mankunkungozi, Yakalinkomo, 1964. Still relevant today.
Winston Mankunko Quartet, all the way back from 1968, Yakal Inkomo. We've been asking you for songs that got you connected to South African jazz, not just jazz, the genre, but the specific music that we're going to be celebrating, although there are going to be lots and lots of artists from outside of South Africa, but the spine of the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz is going to be South African talent, from what I can see on the program. Karabo says, mine is Homo by Jonas Gwangwa. Do I need to tell you? Jonas Gwangwa, Homo. Your voice notes keep coming in. The jazz keeps flowing as we start getting ourselves ready for the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz. 702 very much involved in that. If you need a note in your diary, 25 and 26 September at the Sandton Convention Center.
Afternoon, John. Mine is Meeting of the Woman by Paul Demner. This is Riti in Rustenburg.
Such a distinct sound. Paul Hanmer off his 97 album Trains to Taung, that one called Meeting of the Women. Now, what have we got from Muzi? Muzi wants to bring us back to Hugh Masekela. We were first taken there by Tandiswa Mazwai, the song Normali. Favorite songs of South African jazz artists that introduce you not just to jazz, the musical form, but to jazz as performed by South Africans. Your voice notes, great selection so far. Let's have some more.
Good afternoon, John and the team. It's Nash here. For me, John, there are many South African jazz artists that would have really made me get hooked to jazz music. But my absolute favorite must be Jimmy Dludlu, and the song that I absolutely love, it's the song Winds of Change. Amazing song, that one.
Jimmy Dludlu, I suppose we can claim him. He spent a lot of time here, but actually born in Mozambique. And Loretta also wanted to hear some Jimmy Dludlu and said, I'm carpooling with my colleagues on our way home to our families. Please play us Jimmy Dludlu, Spiral Arm. We didn't play Spiral Arm, but we did play Jimmy. One more.
Hello, Ndade John. My favorite jazz song by a South African is Bump Jive by The Movers. It slaps at weddings, especially towards the end of the reception. Thank you.
The Movers with Bump Jive. I don't know if we can bump, but we actually have to bounce because we're at the end of 702 Drive. It's been great having you with us on the show. Money Show is next. Stay with us on 702 and have a fabulous Tuesday evening while you do it. From me, John Perlman, and the team, good night.
And now, The Money Show.
With Stephen Grootes, live
on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app
and DSTV channel 856.
The Money Show with Stephen Krutis is brought to you by Absa Corporate and Investment Banking, proud to safeguard the retirement confidence built by generations of South Africans. Good evening. On your Money Show tonight, ShopRite moves into the coffee business. Buying the Vida coffee chain, will speak to the ShopRite chief barista Peter Elbrecht in the next 10 minutes. Sasol makes a profit of 61 billion rand. They'll use the oil price bonanza to pay back some of their debt. Sibanye-Stillwater benefits from higher platinum and gold prices. And in personal finance from 7:30 this evening, what you absolutely need to know about the stock market. All of that to come, but first, your very latest Eyewitness News.
A good evening, I'm Sibs Matiela. In news just in this hour, the Madlanga Commission has postponed the testimony of Crime Intelligence Deputy Feroz Khan to the 28th of September. Khan was subpoenaed to testify today over allegations of interference